How to regain your omnipotence. If you are interested in this topic, then you already have the basic knowledge that each person is the creator of their reality. That is, the control center of their universe. But you can control it only while at the high vibrations of the creator. And there are people who have already had this experience. But if a person lowers their vibrations, then he returns back to the matrix. But how is it possible that a person gets into these divine vibrations, into a state of unconditional happiness? Incredible opportunities open up for him, and over time he loses this state, along with his abilities. To find the reason, you need to dig deeper, understand how everything works here. When I asked myself what the matrix is and why it is needed, different images began to emerge from memory, and they fit together like puzzles into a complete picture of what is happening. Imagine that you are the omnipotent absolute, the universal mind, consciousness. That is, you are intelligent energy, which is an endless black void. You know that you are omnipotent. But how do you find out what exactly you can do? In fact, you don't know yourself at all, because you exist only as a spectrum of all sorts of energies. And then you decide to create a game where you can test yourself. Find out what feelings will manifest different frequencies of your energies in matter. And since you create everything yourself, you can come up with incredible abilities that you can experience and feel only while in a material body. To make this game exciting, you came up with rules and quests. But you are no longer interested in completing them, since you know all the ins and outs. And the game can end as soon as it begins. Therefore, you decide to reset the consciousness that enters the game. In other words, no knowledge or memory, a complete zero. And you begin to play all the characters at the same time. But so that they are not the same, each is immersed in a personal scenario with certain circumstances, where they begin to download matrix programs to you. You acquire personality traits, learn to think, make decisions, and become a full-fledged character in this game. Playing this role, you, as the Almighty Absolute, get the opportunity to test yourself, study yourself, what you are capable of, and how energies of different frequencies manifest in life. This is what the Matrix is for, to know all the facets of your manifestations, and to see the consequences of certain actions. But one day there comes a moment when nothing pleases you anymore, when all this running around becomes so boring that a reassessment of values begins to occur. Life itself loses its meaning. Having reached this point, a person begins to look for a path to awakening. These are good times. Any information can be found on the internet, and you can understand at what stage of awakening you are. People tell their stories of enlightenment and lead seekers along the path they themselves took. All these paths lead to one thing, that the only reality is the present moment in which a person is at this second. Everything else is just thoughts that wander in the past or in the future. Awakening is when a person lives in the present moment and realizes himself as the creator of his reality. When a person reaches this point, the question arises, what next? And then the most interesting part begins. Having raised your vibrations to the state of I am the creator, hidden opportunities open up for you, which I talked about in the video called How I Got Rid of All My Diseases. When you realize that you can do everything, it's time to start playing in the life that you have not yet lived. You, as the control center of your universe, can create a reality of love and abundance for yourself. And you create, with the power of thought and imagination, directing them in the right direction. The most important thing is to have an interest, a goal in life, excitement if you want. Because if you do not see the meaning of your existence, then there is no inspiration, and as a result there is no mood, no energy, and you automatically fall in vibrations and become unhappy. Unfortunately, such a phenomenon takes place, and very often, it happens that the state of joy disappears completely, and the soul becomes empty. All that remains is the knowledge. who you are, and how everything works. That there is no feeling of happiness and harmony. And this is the most depressing. Having once known the bliss and power of the Creator, and having lost it, a person can no longer live as before. He begins to look for ways to return back to his true self, immerses himself in practices, meditations, looks for spiritual mentors. And this can drag on for years, as happened not only with me, but this state can and should be returned. You can follow the known path and begin to thank the Creator. This, of course, leads to the necessary vibrations, but in this case, you again act as a character who depends on someone, thanks someone for what he has. This means that you are not the master of your life, not the Creator, and therefore the next level of the game is not available to you. And the secret is that miracles can only be performed while on the vibrations of the Absolute, realizing your omnipotence. But how to get into this state without resorting to worship? Remaining yourself, the Almighty Absolute. I have been looking for an answer to this question for a long time, because I myself have experienced the rise and fall of vibrations, and I know how hard it is to get out of negative programs. And finally, I found a simply phenomenal method that pulled me out of the bottom. It is guaranteed to return you to your true self. And very soon you will find that you are literally bathing in these magical vibrations. And the best part is that you do not need any practices or meditations, because this is just knowledge that is not in 3D. With this information, you will understand the nature of your abilities, and will never lose them. You will find this knowledge in the video called How to Return to the State of Goodness. I will leave a link under the video.